It was a Tuesday night, July 16, 2025, a date that would change late-night TV forever. The city that never sleeps was buzzing, but inside the iconic Ed Sullivan Theater, a different kind of electricity was in the air. The skyline glimmered, unaware that a seismic shift in television history was about to unfold. For years, The Late Show had been a staple of American culture, a nightly ritual for millions. But tonight, something was different. The anticipation was palpable, as if everyone sensed that this episode would be unlike any other. Stephen Colbert, the man behind the desk, sat in his familiar spot, but this time, his gaze was sharper, his posture more resolute. Staring down the camera, he addressed the shocking news that had rippled through the entertainment world. The Late Show was canceled. The words hung in the air, heavy and surreal. For a moment, the audience held its breath, unsure if this was another one of Colbert's elaborate jokes. But Colbert didn't dodge the topic. He didn't sugarcoat or sidestep. Instead, he dove in headfirst, wielding his trademark satire like a sword. With every word, he cut through the corporate spin and PR statements, determined to give his viewers the unvarnished truth. His delivery was sharp, his timing impeccable, and his wit as biting as ever. The studio, usually filled with laughter, now crackled with a mix of tension and anticipation. Colbert declared the gloves were off. He promised that his final shows would be unfiltered and unapologetic, especially when it came to the man who had become a recurring character in his monologues. Donald J. Trump. No more holding back, no more playing it safe. Colbert was ready to speak his mind, consequences be damned. The audience erupted in applause, sensing that they were witnessing a rare moment of television history, one where the host was truly free. With a sly grin, Colbert called out the network's $16 million settlement with Trump, sarcastically dubbing it a big fat bribe. The line landed perfectly, drawing laughter and gasps in equal measure. But beneath the humor was a pointed critique, a challenge to the powers that be. Colbert wasn't just making jokes, he was exposing the uncomfortable truths that others were too afraid to say out loud. As the laughter faded, Colbert grew more contemplative. He framed his firing as more than just a business decision. It was about silencing a critical voice. He spoke candidly about the role of satire in democracy, and how comedy could be a powerful tool for holding the powerful accountable. The audience listened intently, realizing that this was about more than just a TV show. It was about the right to speak truth to power, even when it's uncomfortable. Of course, Colbert couldn't resist mixing biting critique with humor. He blamed his mustache for the cancellation, joking that perhaps it had finally become too controversial for network television. He poked fun at his own monologue, riffing on the absurdity of the situation. The audience roared with laughter, grateful for the levity in the midst of such a serious moment. The laughter was genuine, but the message was clear. This was no ordinary exit. Colbert was using his platform to turn a personal setback into a public statement. He was inviting his viewers to join him in questioning the status quo, to see beyond the headlines and understand the deeper issues at play. As the show neared its end, Colbert took a moment to thank his viewers. He spoke from the heart, expressing gratitude for their loyalty and support over the years. In that moment, a corporate rejection was transformed into a moment of solidarity. The audience responded with a standing ovation, their applause echoing the sentiment that Colbert's voice mattered and would be missed. Refusing to let the network control the narrative, Colbert owned his story, live on air. He made it clear that he would not go quietly, that his final episodes would be a celebration of free speech and fearless comedy. The defiance in his voice was unmistakable, and the audience rallied behind him. Promising to go out with a bang, Colbert ensured that the conversation was about more than just a show ending. He challenged his viewers to think critically, to question authority, and to never take their freedoms for granted. The energy in the room was electric, as if everyone knew they were witnessing the end of an era, and the beginning of something new. What started as a monologue quickly became a debate about free speech, corporate power, and the future of satire in America. Colbert invited guests and fellow comedians to join the conversation, turning his final shows into a forum for ideas and dissent. The discussions were lively, passionate, and unfiltered, just as he had promised. As the lights dimmed and the cameras panned across the empty set, it was clear that the stage was set for a dramatic final act. The legacy of The Late Show, and of Stephen Colbert himself, would not be defined by cancellation, but by the courage to speak out, to challenge the powerful, and to leave the audience with something to think about long after the credits rolled. In the midst of swirling rumors and mounting tension about the fate of his show, Stephen Colbert did what he does best. He turned to comedy. With a perfectly timed smirk and a twirl of his mustache, Colbert jokingly blamed his facial hair for the show's supposed downfall. It was a classic Colbert move, using humor to deflect the seriousness of the situation, and to give his audience a much-needed laugh. He didn't stop there. Colbert spun an elaborate and hilarious theory about stash-ism, suggesting that his mustache had somehow become a scapegoat for all the show's troubles. He riffed on the idea that perhaps the mustache had offended the network executives, or maybe it had developed a mind of its own, plotting behind the scenes. The audience roared as he described his mustache as a rogue agent, responsible for everything from low ratings to awkward interviews. The mustache quickly evolved into a running gag, a comedic shield that Colbert wielded against the grim reality of network politics and behind-the-scenes drama. Each night he found new ways to incorporate the mustache into his monologues, using it as a symbol of resistance and absurdity. It became a character in its own right, a silent partner in his nightly battle against the powers that be. Colbert even pointed out the suspicious timing of events. He wore the mustache during a particularly scathing monologue aimed at the network, then shaved it off, and just days later, the show was canceled. Was it a coincidence, or was the mustache truly cursed? He played up the mystery, inviting the audience to join in on the joke and speculate wildly. Drawing on Hollywood's long history of infamous mustache moments, Colbert compared his own facial hair to those of legendary actors and controversial celebrities. He joked that perhaps he was simply following a grand tradition of mustache-related chaos, turning his own grooming choice into a symbol of rebellion and unpredictability. Through this ongoing joke, Colbert cleverly mocked the absurdity of blaming creative choices, like a mustache, for the complex, often arbitrary decisions made by corporate executives. He highlighted how ridiculous it was to pin the fate of an entire show on something as trivial as facial hair, using satire to expose the flaws in the system. The audience loved it. Fans quickly rallied behind the #Stashism movement, turning what started as a simple gag into a full-blown protest and a powerful show of support for Colbert. Social media lit up with memes, signs, and messages, as viewers embraced the mustache as a symbol of solidarity and defiance. In the end, Colbert's humor brought people together. By finding laughter in the darkness, he united his audience, transforming a moment of uncertainty into one of community and joy. The mustache may have been a joke, but the connection it fostered was very real. Behind the headlines and the swirling rumors, network insiders were quick to insist that the cancellation of The Late Show was driven by financial realities, not political motivations. While the public speculated about hidden agendas, those within the industry pointed to a much simpler, if harsher, truth. The numbers just didn't add up anymore. Over the past decade, late-night television as a whole has been on a steady decline. Viewership has dropped year after year as audiences shift to streaming platforms and social media for their entertainment and news. The once loyal late-night crowd has become fragmented, and advertisers have followed them elsewhere, leading to shrinking ad revenue across the board. Producing a nightly talk show is an expensive endeavor. From elaborate sets and high-tech equipment to a large staff of writers, producers, and crew, the costs add up quickly. For The Late Show, these high production costs became increasingly difficult to justify as the audience dwindled and profits evaporated. In an effort to keep the show afloat, Colbert's team had already made tough decisions, slashing budgets, cutting back on segments, and laying off valued staff members. Despite these painful measures, the financial bleeding continued and the show remained a heavy burden on the network's balance sheet. According to multiple reports, The Late Show was losing up to $40 million a year. That kind of loss is hard for any network to ignore, especially in an era where every dollar counts and competition for viewers is fiercer than ever. The timing of the cancellation couldn't have been worse. It came just days after Colbert delivered a scathing monologue about former President Trump, instantly sparking a firestorm of speculation online. Social media lit up with accusations of censorship and political retaliation, fueling conspiracy theories that quickly gained traction. Meanwhile, Paramount, the network's parent company, was in the midst of seeking approval for a massive merger. The optics of canceling a politically charged show during such a sensitive time only added to the controversy, making the network's motives appear even more suspect in the eyes of the public. To many viewers, it looked like a political hit job, but for the executives making the call, it was a matter of financial survival. The gap between public perception and corporate reality had never been wider. The truth, as is often the case, was likely a messy collision of bad timing and brutal economics. The show's fate was sealed by forces both within and beyond its control. In the aftermath, the network found itself on the defensive, forced to explain a decision that, regardless of intent, looked deeply political to a divided audience. The executives faced tough questions from the press and the public alike. What started as a business decision quickly spiraled into a national controversy, dominating headlines and sparking debates far beyond the world of television. The story had become bigger than just TV. It was now a flashpoint in the ongoing battle over media, money, and politics. Late-night hosts may compete, but they stand together when one falls. John Oliver, Seth Meyers, and others voiced support for Colbert, turning his cancellation into an industry-wide alarm. Jon Stewart, Colbert's mentor, went on the offensive, blasting Paramount for silencing a critical voice. Stewart questioned whether the move was about money or clearing the way for Paramount's merger. Their solidarity reframed the story. This wasn't just about Colbert, but about the future of satire and free speech. The late-night community made it clear they wouldn't stay silent. At the heart of the uproar was Paramount's $16 million settlement with Trump. Colbert seized on it, calling it a big fat bribe and suggesting his show was axed to appease Trump. The timing made it look like a corporate sacrifice to smooth a merger. Critics speculated the payment was to neutralize Trump's potential interference. Even if unrelated, the optics were disastrous. Journalistic integrity traded for business. The settlement became a symbol of everything wrong with the cancellation. It fueled suspicions of backroom deals and corporate capitulation. The story was now a cautionary tale about money, power, and the media. The cancellation sparked immediate outrage. Fans flooded social media with #SaveTheLateShow and #Stashyism, organizing protests and boycotts. For many, Colbert was more than a comedian. He was a nightly voice of sanity. The abrupt end felt personal, a silencing of a vital perspective. Celebrities like Sandra Oh joined the chorus, amplifying the backlash. The public's response showed the deep bond between Colbert and his audience. The cancellation was seen as a threat to free expression, not just a business move. Colbert thanked his fans, acknowledging their power and loyalty. Behind the scenes, Colbert's manager knew about the cancellation weeks before he did. The show had been under financial strain for months, with layoffs and budget cuts foreshadowing the end. Reports of $40 million annual losses painted a stark financial picture. The decision was driven by bottom lines, even as the public saw politics. The real story: creative success doesn't always mean financial survival. The cancellation ignited fears about corporate power muzzling dissent. Commentators warned of a chilling effect on comedians and journalists. With Paramount's merger looming, the timing looked suspect. The public wondered, was this about profits or silencing critics? Even if financial, the optics fueled distrust and debate about free speech. The controversy forced a national reckoning over who controls the media narrative. Colbert's cancellation is more than a TV story. It's a snapshot of America's media crossroads. It's about money, politics, and the fragility of free speech. The suspicious timing made it a symbol of corporate power silencing dissent. The public's passionate response showed how vital satire is to democracy. For millions, Colbert wasn't just a host, he was a truth-teller. The saga forces us to ask, who gets to speak, and who gets silenced? In the end, it's about more than jokes. It's about who holds power to account.